Right. Hi everyone, good evening. You all stayed till the end, so great job. Give yourselves a huge round of applause. Okay, so we've all been sitting and listening to like really thought-provoking things for a while. So let's do this thing. If you can, comfortably, let's stand in your place and do like a shake dance. Like for a second, just like shake it off. You've all been like sitting for so long. Stretch your legs, stretch all your limbs, all of that. Okay, now sit down and think, can AI do that? All right, so I'll get started. My name is Safinah. I am an assistant professor at New York University. I work in this program called Education, Communication, and Technology. As Professor Sam O said earlier today, I'm like the baby of this group, so I just tag along where they go and do like cool things with them. So thank you so much for having me. I'm also a roboticist, so in my day job, like I make robots. I make like cute small robots like the one that I'm holding. But I'm also an artist, so I also make like visual art. And then the last thing that I do is I'm the director of this lab at NYU, which is called Creative AI Experiences, which I only named this week, so this is brand new, isn't that? And all of this will make sense at tie in the end. So we heard some like really profound thoughts about what does it mean for our future, for education, for writing, for literature, for us to have AI now. I'm just going to be talking about some like fun applications of AI and a story about how I got into working with kids and working with these creative AI tools. So in my early work, when I was a PhD student, I joined this robotics lab, and I was very excited about designing robots that can promote learning in children. Learning, as you know, is a very cognitive, social, affective, relational process. Like learning isn't just one person giving information, another person getting information, right? Like a lot goes on when we're learning. Like even right now, I can kind of tell, like who's interested, who's like, kind of zoned out. You're like nodding, we're making like eye contact. There are all these different social things, subtle things that are happening, right? So learning engages many functionally distinct brain regions. So even when like neuroscience folks, do scans, like a lot of regions in our brain sort of light up. Learning is socially gated, so there's a lot of social interactions that go on, as I said. So interactions with agents improves our efficiency and our attention. So when someone's, imagine like if I was just reading a book versus if I'm like a little bit more expressive and animated, there's a difference in how we perceive that information, right? And then finally, our emotions are deeply involved through each step of the learning. So our attention, our comprehension, our integration, our like memory consolidation, all of these are super related to like how well we are able to learn. And then as you can imagine, in our learning environment, there's so much social interaction that goes on with others. So not just the person who's teaching and learning, but also who else is in the room. Maybe your peers are in the room, maybe there's others that you're collaborating with. However, today, learning in a lot of classrooms looks like this, where we have all this new technology that we're bringing into classrooms. Like so many classrooms have Chromebooks, iPads, AI, and all of those serve really good functions. There's so many amazing things that we can do with AI and learning that we heard from so many talks before. But what happens to the social aspect of learning when we bring in these technologies? So for that, I thought social robots could be a really good application because these are embodied AI agents that can interact with you socially and do all those things that your social peers were able to do and kind of bring in that social angle when we're using these digital tools in learning. So let's look at a video of how these actually work. Oh, sorry.
Hi, my name is Daegu. Nice to meet you. What is your name?
I'm Ariana.
Early literacy skills form the basis of a large part of children's future learning. But children entering preschool and kindergarten come from linguistically diverse backgrounds, affected by many factors, including their family's cultural origin and socioeconomic status. Therefore, it's important to create personalized solutions for promoting early literacy.
What was your favorite story so far?
My favorite story, it was the bunny one.
Using a social robot as an embodied AI agent provides several advantages. Studies show that early literacy development requires exposure to a rich variety of spoken language and vocabulary during social interaction with others. Children engage with social robots in an emotive and relational way, and the affective cues that social robots can elicit from children provide a better opportunity to assess their engagement states.
So there were all these interesting computational ways that we were using, such as trying to understand how the child is feeling, like social expression by the robot, this embodied interaction of some kids hugging the robot. And all of these, time and again, not just with my projects, but with other projects with social robots, have shown so many benefits in cognitive learning. So students, when they interact with an expressive robot, they're able to learn language better, they're able to learn math better, they're able to remember things for longer. But then I thought about, what about creative learning? I was always very interested in creativity and human creativity, and how do we actually learn to be creative? What makes one person more creative than another? What makes one thing more creative than another? So I started to look at how children learn creativity at all. And it turns out they also learn creativity from others. We socially emulate others in our environment. Children collaborate with other children, they play with other children, make things together and learn creativity with them. But then we also see this really sad thing is that when children enter school, their creativity starts to drop. And there's a slight pickup, but then it keeps dropping again. This happens again, there's again a very steep drop when they enter college. And this is happening oftentimes because our curriculum, our instruction is very, very structured. So I started looking into how can we foster creativity in children and kind of move opposite to this trend that's happening. And I was looking at how children are learning to be creative. They learn to be creative by social emulation, by collaboration, by positive environments around them, by having more autonomy, by the relationships that they found. And by entering this state of flow where things feel just hard enough, but not too hard or not too easy. So again, I wondered, can social robots help children be more creative? In a lot of our experiments, we had noticed that when robots express different behaviors, when they were more curious, kids were more curious. When they had better growth mindset, kids had higher growth mindset. So I wondered if that worked for creativity as well. So I designed a bunch of different experiments where children were doing different creative tasks with robots, such as drawing together, telling stories together. And I started to look at conditions in which the robot was more creative, but children also more creative. So interactions look like that, where a child would be working with a robot, and together they would be constructing something. So that's
What are you trying to make?
You said to make a wall so that your little guy doesn't run away when you want him to. That's all it's clear.
That is such a great idea. Good job.
Head.
And in this case, we're seeing that the robot and the child are creating that Lego model, but the robot keeps coming up with different ideas, and that would change. Sometimes it would have lesser ideas, sometimes it would have more ideas. I was looking at what the effect of that is. Let's skip over this video, but this is a similar thing where they are co-drawing. Actually, let's play it anyway. So.
Oh, a flamingo. Now, draw any starting shape on the screen, and I will convert it to a flamingo.
So here they are collaboratively drawing. So the child is starting with some lines, and the robot's taking that and converting that to a flamingo that the child chose.
Oh, I can use those as flamingo legs and make a body.
So yeah, you get the point, it's doing that. And there were a lot of creativity scaffolding mechanisms in play, it's giving ideas, it's asking questions, it's sharing intent, there's some positive reinforcement. And you must be wondering, where did all these behaviors come from? So we actually looked at their teachers. We looked at how their teachers were encouraging them in these creative activities, and we modeled behaviors based on their teachers. And then now there could be this one personalized agent for every child in the classroom when the teacher didn't have the time to personally attend to. But how about the results? So when I noticed, when I compared a no robot condition, so it was just the tablet versus a non-creative robot versus a creative robot, we're seeing that the creative robot, which is the third graph over here, was always leading to higher creativity in children. But just the robot being present and not doing these social interactions, that didn't actually lead to any change. So the first and the second graph, there's an increase, but there's no significant increase. And we saw this happen time and again with different types of creativity. But then I also like started to wonder, like creativity isn't these like super narrow constrained tasks where you can like measure the creativity of something. I was also like somewhat opposed to like measuring creativity at all. Like, how can you say that like one drawing is creative versus another is not? So I started to like take a step back from this work, and I was working more on the algorithm side then. So I started to work in the industry a little bit and create these like machine learning algorithms that can create media, so such as creating drawings, creating like music, early models that were also generating text. So this was the early day of transformers and attention models. And this really inspired me that now that our AI can like do so much, what if we make a child-robot interaction that is more open-ended in its creativity? So I made this collaborative storytelling interaction. So let me actually go like this. So this is a bunch of things going on. There's a tablet screen over there where the child and the robot are doing this turn-taking story narrative creation. So they're creating picture stories. The robot is doing social scaffolding. So it's giving like different interactions such as sharing the intent, like positive reinforcement, so different like social interactions. And there's some figurative creativity happening, so they're making like drawings or generating images together. And there was a lot of dilemma here about when two agents are collaborating in an open-ended task, how much agency should the robot have? And this was a very interesting question because think of like yourself collaborating with another person. It's hard to like measure how much agency you want to have in that situation to be ideal. And the answer to this eventually was that different kids want different amount of agencies for it to be an ideal interaction for them. So let's see what the actual interaction looked like. So this is what the storytelling notebook looked like. And the robot took in a bunch of different data as context, not just the story. So it was looking at where in the story we are, what history do you have on this child, what is sort of the reading level of this child, are there any sort of like accessibility things that we should consider. So let's see.
Hello, I am Rose, a little cute bunny. I love roses so much that they make me happy. I like roses, they're so red and sometimes could be so many colors. I love this world.
What a brilliant idea, Rose. I love how our story is going.
Nice.
Should I add something to our masterpiece?
Yes? Yes, please.
And here you can also sometimes see some fails in interaction.
One day,
Sometimes
Rose
the child will
walked
see
into a
something
garden
robot
full of the
doing
most colorful flowers she had ever seen. Not just red, but blue, yellow, and even rainbow.
Wow.
What do you think of that? You
Amazing.
can always ask me to recreate an idea. I love to learn and create better ideas. I learned from many artworks that were called cats, and I learned to create cats.
Here the robot's also making transparent what data set it's trained on.
Do you think you are artistic?
Yeah, that's why I came from the library and brought with me this Kyungpook. Alright, John, because when I grow up, I'm going to be a doctor instead. Doctor is better. I don't know what to do. I want to be a singer, teacher, ballet teacher, and a doctor, and a singer.
Well,
I don't know.
I feel like Picasso. What do you think of my drawing?
Amazing. Oh, so cute.
And even with like having the ability to
I like it.
to-
Tibo, it's nice, really nice.
Sorry, I'm gonna pause. So even with having the ability to have large language models to generate all this, high quality like images, text, this was actually a very hard thing to do, like to make up a really good collaborative interaction, which would know when to speak, know how much to speak, know not to interrupt, like know how to recognize children's voice. So all these different like challenges that came in there. There was also a thing that the robot was doing was sometimes it would throw in an idea into the story that was completely far away from what the child like started with, so divergent thinking. And I ran this for long term, so there were like 5 sessions that children interacted with, and I was looking at collaborative emergence. So what happens, like what sort of behaviors emerge both in the creative process and the creative product of the child interacting with the robot. And what I saw time and again, sorry, this is like super small, but I'll explain. Just like look at the box graphs, and a lot of them like go up, but if you see the last one, in some conditions they drop down. So the green one is question asking, then there's feedback seeking, there's creativity. So more and more that they interacted with the robot, their creativity increased, but when the robot was taken away, it dropped back down. So that means they were like creating this sort of like dependency on creating with this agent, so it's not truly a learned behavior when it's taken away that it's dropping back down. So I'm going to skip this a little bit. And then there was also an interesting thing that we noticed with divergent thinking. So the first and the last graph is when the robot wasn't present. In between, the robot was present. Otherwise, the exact same model was running with it. But when the robot came up with a totally different idea, children were like less likely to disagree with it and less likely to be upset about it than when a tablet was doing it. So just the embodiment of this robot like made it a little bit more forgiving. But another concerning thing that came about in these experiments was that children harbored several misconceptions about how these robots were actually working. Like sometimes when a robot didn't have an answer, they'd be like, it's okay, I'm just gonna ask the other one, without realizing that they're actually working on the same thing. They didn't realize how their data sets were collected, things like that. So then I started to think about, we should promote creative AI literacy for K-12 students. Like we often think of higher ed and like graduate school, undergraduate school, but what about K-12? Like they're also living with AI. They also are using all these tools that have AI in them. So I started to work on a bunch of AI literacy curricula. And if you notice this, like a lot of them have the word creativity in them, because I was still like interested in how can children like not just learn about AI, but create with AI. On the side, like our algorithms were getting so much better. My own artwork, I was able to animate and do like fun stuff like that. We started this like Boston portrait projects where we were creating like social media accounts of these like beautiful people who didn't exist, and people started to like have crushes on them. And then we were like, oh, what do we do about this situation? You could create like really weird images like that one, or this polar bear looking at the world drown. Or things that we would like to see exist, but we don't see exist in the world, like this astronaut nursing a baby in the space station. Or what if New York City was green again? Or grandma coding. Or I still can't understand this weird thing. But video generation became a big thing as well. And I started to work with art museums who were very interested in how can we use AI for kids to think about art history, to ask questions to paintings, to ask questions to the painters who made these paintings. Students created some really fun applications like this one, where this is a portrait. It's called The Two Fridas. So this is Frida Kahlo, and this is two different phases in her life, one where she's very happy, one where she's going through a lot of tough times. And then they created this like interactive thing where, what if we could hear the two Fridas speaking to each other?
Oh, my heart feels a little bit leaky, like a juice box with a tiny hole. It's a bit drippy, but I'm trying to sew it up. It's delicate work.
My heart feels strong like a drum, but it's also a little bit tangled up with yours. It makes me a little worried about you. Are you okay?
It's a little ouchy, but I'm tough. And you're holding my hand, so that helps a lot.
Always. We are connected after all. Even if our hearts feel different right now, we'll get through this together.
And these kids started to share with us that it would be so much more fun to learn about art in these ways, where like paintings could speak to us, like paintings about music could actually play the music back to us. And there were all these fun things that you could do with generative AI at that point. We created algorithms like these where you could actually generate images in geometric patterns. And to me, this was cool. Like this was an interesting shift for me when generative AI was able to do things like this, because then it started to have its own creative language. Like this is something that we don't see happen often in human-made art. So now it wasn't just mimicking, but we were able to combine algorithms in interesting ways with generative AI. But it also had a lot of serious problems, right? Like the intelligent teacher was always a man. The pretty girl was always young and white and had blue eyes, or the hungry child was always brown. And these were big problems, like algorithmic biases existed in these models. There was rampant plagiarism of data sets, especially from artist communities, without taking their consent. The Writers Guild protest happened, where they spoke about how ChatGPT is using data sets and how it's like hurting their careers. And they presented this like urgent need to build responsible AI that is for artists and with artists. So artists to be involved, like have a seat at the table, and not for this to be a one-way technology that flows from technologists back to the artists. And for future artists, so kids today who are like budding artists, for them to learn about AI in art making. So I made this like AI and art curriculum where here they're actually not learning about AI, they're learning about art, but they're thinking about how AI impacts art making, both positively and negatively. So make a bunch of different like artwork with AI, they reflect on art history, they gain a lot of AI knowledge, and then they're also coming up with policies around how AI should be used in the creative industries. So let's hear this girl speaking about her work with AI.
Of how I can improve, and here's my work, and I wrote like how do I make my character like feel more emotional and like more sad, and AI wrote back to like change the color and to like for the expression, like make their character have like more bluey feelings to it, which is like I added some blue and I gave my character like a frown face.
So here, children are not generating art with AI, but they're using AI to get feedback on their own art and like make changes to it. They created all these like beautiful characters, getting ideas from AI. Here you can see a child who's modeling her own clay character based on AI. They also landed upon some issues in AI themselves, and some like very interesting and sometimes funny ways like this.
Yes, it literally showed. Like, this is what it shows.
Okay.
I don't think that's what geese from Asia look like. Geese from Asia look like regular geese. What is wrong?
So this is a super young kid, like this is a kid who's actually like in elementary school and like is able to realize that these AI are like stereotyping some things about Asian culture and like just generating geese. And they started to make these posters around what responsible design of AI tools should be, and they actually took these posters to the Cambridge Council, like Cambridge and Massachusetts Council, to talk about how AI is like impacting their lives. And it's a quote that I want to leave you with from a child who said, AI is a tool, and tools, they come and go. They're in this hype cycle right now. But the stories that we tell through art, like those are yours to tell, and the stories, they will stay. And then another thing I've been thinking a lot about is, sure, there are all these awesome, amazing things that AI is changing in our worlds, but I really ask you to like think critically about who gets to create with AI. There are a lot of parts of the world right now that don't have access to these technologies, or even if they do, they are not represented in the data sets, and oftentimes labor or materials from there were exploited to create these technologies as well, and we often like forget those facts as well. So not everyone gets to create with AI. These technologies are still not super inclusive, and we're like thinking actively of ways of like trying to make them more and more inclusive. I also work on making like super low-cost embodied toolkits. It's a robot that I'm developing right now that children can train, and they can make it like do different art things like make drawings and program the robot and also learn about AI in the process. Alright, that's all. I'm also recruiting students, so the students in the room, and if you're interested in this kind of work, definitely write to me, and everything's at that QR. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Especially, really appreciate your videos that you shared with us today. I'd like to invite our discussant for this presentation, Dr. Una Cha. Dr. Cha is an associate professor at the School of Business Administration at KNU. Her research focuses on quantitative analysis for factors affecting workers and organizations. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Cha. She is going to use some slide for the discussion.
Thank you, Professor Ali. Promoting creativity in children and young generation is becoming an essential task in today's turbulent world. However, the concept of creativity and the creative process itself remains difficult to define, making it both challenging and frustrating to identify effective ways to facilitate creative learning. In this context, it is especially exciting to witness the new developments and advancements in AI applications in the area, as you have demonstrated. The title here Looking Sideways was inspired by and adopted from both a book by Alan Fletcher and MIT Media Lab projects of the same name, each designed to stimulate creativity through loosely connected heterogeneous elements. The title captures my perspective as well, as someone who is not an expert in AI, but a social and cultural psychologist by training, looking at AI-assisted creative learning with curiosity and untrained eyes. So I would casually share my rambling and divergent thoughts in response to your studies, hoping to spark creative thoughts. And I recall learning about the term human-computer interaction about 25 years ago, while I was applying to a PhD program in the US. At the time, human-computer interaction was a novel, unfamiliar field, especially within social sciences in Korea. I ultimately chose the more obvious path as a psychology major, studied cultural psychology instead. Part of me still wonders what I've done if I'd studied human-computer interaction. But I have to say, human-computer interaction at the time was quite different from what I see now. And it's truly astonishing to see how dramatically the concept has evolved over the years, especially now, as we discuss interacting with AI agents as creative companions. Professor Ali's research demonstrates exciting possibility with AI creativity support tools. As with most AI research, a natural question arises: will these technologies be accessible to everyone and benefit them equitably? And it is reassuring that Professor Ali confronts this question head-on, examining creative learning in K-12 students and also students of determination, thereby addressing gaps in both age and equity. As a cultural psychologist, I would like to add another dimension to this picture, which is culture. If we consider creative learning a cognitive and social process, especially in co-creation with AI agents, I wonder how culture plays a role. Cultural studies have shown that cultural variation reaches beyond behavior and values, affecting cognition and even physiological processes, including brain activation, neural networks, hormonal reactions, and even genes. Yet, understanding the culture fabric and especially developing culture-specific models or parameters still seems far off. Furthermore, culture studies suggest fundamental differences in how people relate to each other, commonly captured in dimensions such as individualism versus collectivism. However, due to the convenience of data access, most AI studies are prone to leaning toward people in weird societies, weird representing Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. And as Petresky and colleagues recently noted, machines are still studied primarily as solitary agents built on individualistic assumptions. These leads us to the following questions. Are there distinct cultural ways of creativity that have emerged as adaptive solutions? Can AI CSTs be designed based on culture-specific models and data tailored to different cultural needs? These questions could extend to other user groups as well, such as students with learning differences, slow learners, and students with ASD or ADHD. Do we understand the unique models underlying these ways of thinking and principles of interaction and their own path to creativity? This point may relate to your study's finding that children with ASD were less receptive to divergent thinking. Additionally, individuals with anxiety or OCD often fixate on familiar patterns and resist stepping out of their comfort zone, a coping mechanism, but can be a major barrier to creativity in a typical sense. Understanding different mental and psychological models may be key to designing inclusive approaches for those who need it most. And one additional issue I would like to raise is the changing role of human in human AI interaction. Who controls the process? And this seems to be recurring. A different version of this question seems to have brought up throughout the symposium. And the distinction between proactive and reactive agent is one element in AI design. And the trend clearly seems to lean toward developing a more proactive AI agents. Considering that the current human AI interaction and creativity are usually modeled after dyadic relationships, typically involving one human and one machine agents. What will happen to the human agents if the AI increasingly takes more proactive and leading role in such interactions? This question feels especially relevant when discussing creativity. Will humans remain the owners and initiators of creative processes or become mere reactors to AI-generated suggestions? Who will get to ask the good and creative questions? In education, traditional instructions have been supplemented with alternative models like active learning, as Professor Clabo has mentioned, fluid learning, and self-directed approaches. Could such models be applied to creative learning in ways to empower human agency? As Amabile proposed in the intrinsic motivation hypothesis of creativity, experiencing intrinsic value in the task itself is essential for authentic creativity. From this perspective, ensuring that humans retain a proactive and initiating role in creative process becomes even more important. Many studies on creative learning focus on the output, such as the number and the quality of products created to measure its effectiveness. However, if we aim to capture creativity driven by intrinsic motivation, we may need to consider additional measures such as sense of immersiveness, flow, engagement, enjoyment, excitement, and satisfaction, or other affective experiences and psychological states in the process. Many of you may know about AlphaGo, Google DeepMind's Go playing AI, and its 2016 challenge match with Korean player Isedol. Isedol, a highly respected Paduk player in Korea, was defeated 1-4 in his match. His lone win remains the only time a human has defeated the Go program, a remarkable accomplishment on its own. Yet, just 3 years later, Isedol retired from professional Go altogether. In a recent informal YouTube interview, he reflected on his decision. He explained that he had always seen Go as a form of art and spent his life researching unique and creative moves. But with the rapid evolution of AI, he felt that AlphaGo and other programs has surpassed human capability and that he could no longer enjoy the process. He said he felt his presence was no longer needed. His profound frustration forces us to consider the role and even the continued relevance of humans in creative domains shared with AI. While I firmly believe that human-AI interaction can be beneficial for novice learners who are stepping into the creative field, the story of Isedol raises the question of what kind of interaction will support expert and more advanced level creators without diminishing their own creative drive. On a hopeful note, perhaps Isedol's departure from his lifelong career signals the beginning of his new creative journey, experiencing failure, enduring frustration, and stepping beyond one's comfort zone. These difficult moments can themselves become powerful source of creativity. And modeling and supporting this emotional process could be another promising path toward meaningful human-AI co-creativity. And it will be great to see some of these sideways thoughts here can spark other possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so rich. Like, that was the best possible discussion to this. There were a couple of things that actually I was reminded of that I've been thinking about these days about like human creativity. I'm thinking of like gyms. So you know how like we as humans were like so physically strong at some point, and then we didn't need to be anymore because we created all these machines that were able to do that. And then at some point we realized that we actually do like being like physically strong in other ways. And then we created these like gyms, which if you think about it, gyms are a very dystopian concept. Like there are these weights that are doing nothing and we just go there and like we pick them to like do nothing, right? Like there's no purpose to it, but it's just to like keep it strong. And I think about, are they going to be like mind gyms or creativity gyms at some point? As when we all have like now like stopped thinking for ourselves as much, because as much as like we have fun in creating, like creativity isn't just about the process, a product, it's also about the process. And like I personally, it's fine what AI can like make, but I think it's always more intriguing what like humans can make with AI. There's this reality that in a lot of realms, like creativity is also commodified, right? Like there is an assignment that's due at 11:59. Like there is an artwork that's due to my client that's going to get me something. And in those cases, there are very real risks of like AI taking over. There was this recent study by MIT where it showed that it's actually literally slowing our brains down with like regular usages of AI. So yeah, super important things to think about. And then the other thing that you spoke about that really appealed to me was the cultural angle and the cultural specificity of like how we create, what we create, versus this like centralized model of creativity that LLMs offer. So I'm reminded of this one group of middle schoolers that I've worked with who are in San Diego, but they actually moved from, they were part of this like Rohingya community, so they moved from Myanmar. And a lot of them are like displaced in other parts of the world, and they are living, like some of them are living in San Diego right now. And they, like when they learned about this technology, they brought in some like artworks and pieces of artwork that they had from like back home, and they started to like train some models on it, not in a form of like, oh, this art is going to go to AI, but like in a form of like, let's think about how we can like, you know, create more of this and like sort of preserve this. And like super young kids thinking about it. So that was very like a compelling. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.